Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you're hitting the books for commercial or banking law, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're bringing you the ultimate exam prep explainer. We're going to decode exactly how a banker decides to lend money. We've translated raw, handwritten banker's notes into a clean, visual-ready reckoner to ensure you absolutely ace your upcoming exams.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Anatomy of an advance. 2. The golden lending principles. 3. Evaluating the individual borrower. 4. The mass day security test. And 5. Structuring bank finance.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of an advance. Okay, so if you get hit with an essay question on the basics of lending, you absolutely have to start with a solid definition. Based directly on the notes, a loan is an advance, either in money or in kind. But here's the kicker. It must carry interest, and it must have a crystal clear condition of repayment. A bank might grant this with or without security, sure, but those core elements, advance, interest, and repayment conditions, are literally non-negotiable. Definitely write those down.
Now watch out for this classic exam trick. Distinguishing a loan from an advance. They kind of sound like the same thing, right? Well, not in the banking world. While a loan requires timely repayment, think of your standard monthly electronic clearing service, and is usually used to buy fixed assets, it always sits at a negative balance until it's fully paid off. An advance, on the other hand, that's repayable on demand. It's typically tied to current assets, and its balance can actually bounce back and forth between debit and credit. Keep that distinction locked in.
Moving right along to Section 2, the golden lending principles.
When you're outlining your exam answer, you want to visually split the banker's focus into two massive umbrellas. Every single lending function looks first at the activity, which represents the overarching principles of lending, and second at the individual, which is the specific borrower and their collateral. Framing your answer with this two-part focus is a game changer. It shows your professor you truly get the big picture.
Before we dive into the activity itself, jot this exact phrase down from the source notes. Bound to take only calculated risk. A bank's ultimate goal isn't just to hand out free money, but it's also not to avoid all danger. They are in the business of lending with calculated risk. That is the golden rule. So when you're discussing the activity side of the equation, you need to list out the specific principles that guide that calculated risk. We're talking about the safety of funds, profitability, liquidity, the actual purpose of the loan, risk spread, diversification, and of course, security.
Looking at this actual real-world banker's ledger, it's wild to see how these principles apply in practice. Notice how heavily they weigh the safety of funds. Safety is basically built on two pillars: the borrower's capacity to pay and their willingness to pay. As the notes say, it's all about integrity, reputation, and good character. And right below that, profitability, which is a nice reminder that, hey, banks need to earn interest income, often by focusing on easily marketable goods.
Another huge point here is that the purpose of a loan gets heavily scrutinized. Banks are only going to grant loans for productive purposes, like establishing a business, starting a small trade, or funding capital expenditure. The notes explicitly point out that speculative purposes, or completely unproductive uses like big social functions and marriages, those are strictly avoided. If the loan doesn't build value or generate a return, the bank literally won't touch it.
All right, on to Section 3, evaluating the individual borrower. You know I love a good mnemonic device for exams, and the source material hands us a perfect one: the 4 C's of the borrower. When evaluating the individual, the banker looks at character, capacity, capital, and collateral conditions. Character is all about their integrity and promptness to return dues. Capacity, that's their technical and managerial skill. Capital is the margin they're actually putting up themselves. And collateral conditions evaluates the security they are bringing to the table.
But wait, how does the bank actually verify those 4 C's? They definitely don't just take the borrower's word for it. Looking at the ledger notes here, the banker pulls data from all over the place: the original loan application, past account operations, financial statements, IT returns, market reports, and they even do personal interviews and physical site inspections. They are building a super comprehensive risk profile.
Which brings us to Section 4, the mass day security test.
Okay, listen up, because this is your ultimate exam hack. Grab a pen and write this acronym down right now. MASTDAY, MAST Day. This perfectly outlines every single condition a bank requires before accepting a piece of collateral as security. M stands for marketability. Is it easy to sell? A is for ascertaining title. Can you easily figure out its true value and quality?
S is stability. Will that value hold steady over time? T is transferability. Can the legal title be handed over easily? D is durability. It shouldn't be a perishable good. The second A is absence of liability. And Y is yield. Seriously, if you can drop this table into your exam, you are absolutely golden.
To really wow your professor, let's expand on that second A, absence of contingent liability. What does that actually mean in plain English? It means the bank should not have to spend its own money to make the pledged asset saleable. If the collateral requires the bank to sink more cash into it just to liquidate it after a default, it completely fails the test.
And you definitely can't forget the Y for yield. A truly great piece of security doesn't just sit collecting dust in a vault. It actually provides ongoing income to the bank. That yield helps cover the bank's interest and maybe even chips away at the partial repayment of the principal.
Finally, we have Section 5, Structuring Bank Finance. So, the bank has to determine what's called the quantum of finance, which is really just a fancy way of saying, how much are they actually going to lend out? To calculate this, it must be adequate for the projected level of production. They take the total cost of the project, and then they subtract the investment already provided by the borrower, plus any borrowings the individual has from other outside sources. Whatever number is left over, that is the required quantum of finance.
You'll want to wrap up your exam analysis by categorizing the final advance into fund or non-fund loans. Fund loans mean actual cash is moving to the borrower. But to do this safely, a banker absolutely has to appreciate the key indicators securing them. A pledge means the bank takes physical possession of the goods. A hypothecation leaves possession with the borrower but secures movable assets. A mortgage secures immovable stuff, like real estate. And an assignment transfers actionable claims. On the flip side, we have non-fund loans, like letters of credit or guarantees, where backing is provided without immediate cash changing hands. If you categorize these perfectly, you literally tie a bow on your legal analysis.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to close your eyes for a second and ask yourself, when you walk into that commercial law exam, can you list out the complete MAST DAY acronym from memory right now? Can you name the 4 C's? Because getting these core principles down doesn't just help you pass exams, it unlocks exactly how the entire financial world actually measures risk. Keep studying, keep visualizing these frameworks, and you are going to nail it.